Hi guys, Rodri here. Welcome to episode 12 of the Black Feather and Ospreys Rugby Fancast. This week we're doing a crossover episode with the URC Chumps Podcast and are joined by Kirby and Jacques. Do you want to introduce yourself, guys? Kirby, we're obviously familiar with you. You've joined us once before, but Jacques, you're a new face around here. What's your story? What's your rugby story?
Hi, gents. My name is Jacques. I'm all the way from Newcastle here in South Africa. I've been a qualified rugby coach, referee, for the past, my maths, I think about 16, 17 years. I've been part of coaching primary school, high school. I'm currently busy coaching here at the Newcastle Islanders. We're playing Premium League here in the Mpumalanga area. I don't know, rugby has just always been my thing.
Yeah,
and as you can see it at the back, I'm a huge Sharks supporter.
So depending on how this goes, we might have you back on the podcast when you play you in the URC later in the season. But good to have you here. Kirby, what about yourself?
He's also a Cheetahs fan. Yeah, as you guys all know, I'm a Stormers fan. But I mean, rugby through and through. Enjoyed it. We also have to forgive Jacques. He is a bit of a Cheetahs fan as well.
We like that, yeah.
Just wait. It's just because I just lived in Bloemfontein for 3-4 years. I'm not a Cheetahs fan. I'm a Sharks man all the way.
I like pulling his leg about.
You pulled it, yeah, because obviously we've got a relationship with you guys, and we've stolen a couple of your players over the last few seasons that have really helped us out in a pinch. So, no, big up the Cheetahs.
Yeah, but I mean, like I said, in the past one, like I really love my rugby, enjoy it. I like following it, listening to it, watching it. My wife even said earlier, she reminded me of a saying. She said, sports is my first love, especially rugby, and she's my mistress.
And if anybody watches Kirby's TikTok, his wife probably drops down another notch there to just gym, because he posts a lot. So if you want some eye candy, you know where to go looking. And Mark, you're wearing your black tie today. What's that for? Were you in mourning?
I am in mourning tonight. Unlike yourself, Rod, I can't turn my back on Welsh rugby yet. I haven't got a dual nationality that I can fall back on, but I am mourning the demise of not just Welsh rugby, but the Welsh Rugby Union tonight. So I will still support forever, but the black tie just reflects the mood of where we are in Wales, I think, currently. So I will keep it on for this episode and probably for next weekend, I would imagine, as well.
Yeah, I think it'll be getting a lot of use. And as you alluded to there, as people can see, if you're watching rather than listening, I am in my Italy jersey this week because small wins. And that's all that needs to be said there. So, we've got a bit of a structure tonight. We're just going to go over that horrible Australia game. We're going to take a look at the WRU stuff again. And Gatland, is he in? Is he out? Then we're going to look ahead to the South African game, which is why our two Boks are here with us today. And then we'll get to some fan questions at the end as well. So, the Australia game, who wants to kick things off? Mark, I assume you watched it.
Yeah, I did dodge a bullet, I've actually discovered today, because unbeknown to myself until this afternoon, I had won 2 tickets to the game on Sunday, but I only opened the email today to let me know that I'd won it. So I could have actually gone to Cardiff to watch the game and then been thoroughly depressed driving 3 hours home afterwards as well. So I do feel like I dodged a bullet a little bit on. Yeah, I mean, I think every podcast that I've listened to this weekend has tried to start with positives, and they're few and far between. But I think the scrum was decent on Sunday. Granted, the Australian scrum isn't the most fearsome out there, and it'll be a different tale. I think we'll need to be, it'll be a real test of our scrum this weekend, certainly. 2 individuals I think stood out for me: Tom Rogers and James Botham coming into the back row. I think they were the 2 that came out of the game with some credit potentially. But otherwise, it was an absolute shambles, wasn't it? Really, I mean, 19 points down in no time at all. clawed our way back into the game. I'm not quite sure how we clawed it back to 6 points off. It didn't feel like a 6 point game at any point to me. And then that 20-minute period in the second half where they were down to 14 men and we shipped 21 points and 3 tries in that period. And I think that probably reflects where we are. Same thing happened against Fiji. They went down to 14 and they dominated that period of the game against us as well. And Australia didn't just dominate that. They showed how to control the game at that point. They went to their forwards, went to the maul. And then once they got that dominance and once they got the lead, the last 20 were just embarrassing, really. And it was one of those head in hands 20 minutes where, especially was it the last but one try where Cam Winnett looked like he was on roller skates, defending in the corner. That sort of summed everything up. I just felt for the team. I know we'll get on to the coaching structure and everything else later on. But the boys that were out there, and again, they're not going to go out there looking to lose, but they're just not properly prepared for international rugby. We're not producing world-class players at the moment that are capable of stepping up to that level, and the coaching isn't up to scratch in terms of, what they're asking the players to do. It felt like a low. I've sort of got written down here as a precursor to the sort of South Africa chat, the 96-13 defeat in 98, which was the last real low that we had. I think that sort of was the end of that period where the Welsh rugby team had just gone downhill, and that was sort of the nadir moment of that period. And it feels like we're kind of back there again. And I just hope that we're not going to have a repeat of that kind of scoreline on Saturday, because hopefully last Sunday will be as low as we're going to get, and we'll start some shoots of recovery from here. But I can't see how that's going to happen at the moment. But yeah, really, really negative. I felt kind of deflated, ill, sick at the end of the game, really, because there was nothing really to take from it in terms of positives, particularly. And I know, being a Welsh fan, we're always going to look at it in that lens of sort of negativity potentially, and maybe the two South African friends that we have tonight, having watched the game as neutrals, might have a slightly different take on it. But for me as a Welshman, I'm sure you're Rod as well, it was just a thoroughly depressing afternoon.
Yeah, I'm almost glad that the game wasn't close after we went 19-0 down, because there's nothing worse than a close game at the end when you've leaked so many points in that first quarter, because you're just like, well, we sort of played well to this sort of better standard throughout, then we wouldn't be on a knife's edge there, and we could have done a bit better. So I'm glad it wasn't a close game in that sense, but that's me really looking for small wins again. But Jacques and Kirby, did you guys manage to watch the game?
I watched a bit of it. I have to give one positive to you guys. The penalty count was actually more in your favor than it was for theirs. The discipline to make sure that not more penalties in that situation for Wales, it shows that the discipline for the players is actually a lot better, and they were trying not to give away the ball silly ways during the game. Unfortunately, during the penalties that were given, Australia managed to either convert or push back into the half. Unfortunately, the lineouts didn't work in your favor. There was a couple that they just literally just came up in one-handed. Listening to you guys, listening to everything that's happening, I do see it is a bit hard to find the positives and everything like that. The mix-ups, I think you called it Chinese telephone the other day, Rod, about the substitution that's happened. Is it a stage that you guys have to go through to kind of realize your true potential, or is this now a point that you need to just, let's start from scratch, break it all down. This is where we need to go forward from now. And I think I also mentioned it on our podcast. You got the guys of Alan Wynne-Jones, who was, as much as I think he was a bit overrated as a Springbok supporter, he was still a great line-out tactician. And
you
also someone like...
you can't diss Alan Wynne on this podcast, I'm afraid.
Sorry. But also Sam Warburton. He's probably one of the best ruckers and jacklers around in the game. And why isn't he being brought into your guys' system as someone that, you listen to his stuff on social media how he actually breaks down the rules to the breakdowns. I mean, like, he has a great mind. Why isn't he not being used?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I mean, you're talking about positives and trying to glean positives from that game, and you're right, there are a couple, but I think those positives were at an individual level. A
Yeah.
couple of players had standout performances when they needed to, after being maybe ostracized from the team for a period of time. So there were a couple of people who did stand up, but at a team level, at a team performance level, I don't think there was really much positive to glean from that. Obviously, the scrums were a bit more dominant, I guess, than previous weeks. But it feels like it's always one thing at the expense of another. We perform badly in one facet of the game one week. We correct that the next week, but then three other things go tits up. So at the moment, it just feels like it's really disjointed, and I think we looked really physically non-dominant. Our attack lacked edge. Our defense was really soft. You could probably say that some of those players aren't top international standard, which is no dig on them. They may become that standard, but they're being forced into the system probably earlier than they should have. But historically, particularly under Gatland, it's been our sort of heart that set us apart. It's that grit, it's our hunger, it's our passion for the game, and just for that red jersey, and that brought the physical edge, brought that doggedness, I guess. So it goes back to Gatland's old mantra, doesn't it? Be the best at things that require no talent, but that requires that vision and that level of belief that Gatland just doesn't seem to be sort of inspiring in these players. And it's a shame because he's one of my heroes growing up of rugby, but he's probably not looking in a very safe position at the moment.
Oh,
Jacques,
it's
have you
bad. So
insights?
sorry, Rod, to interrupt. And yeah,
Yeah.
it kind of feels like now he's tarnishing his reputation. He's sort of got this aura of being obviously a really successful Welsh coach during his first period with us. And this second period is going so badly. And I think, we'll get on to the coaching, I'm sure, in more detail later on, but it's his inability to adapt, I think, to what the team needs currently. Like you said, we haven't got that physicality in the team currently, so we've got to find a way to play to the strengths that we do have. And just playing, one up forwards all the time, crash balls and that kind of thing. We haven't got the players to do that at the moment, and
But I mean, the famous saying is, you live long enough to see yourself become a hero, but if you go too much longer, you could become the villain.
Yeah.
I mean, is that the case that you're seeing right now in Wales? Is Gatland should have left as a hero, but now he's gone on too much that he's now become a villain. I mean, and unfortunately, I'm sorry for what that for me was the case with Alan Wynne-Jones. I think he tried to go on beyond where he should have stopped. And for me, he just looked like a villain for Wales and everything like that. He wasn't as great as he was at like 150, and he kept on trying to go to 176. So he became the villain. I mean, it's the same thing in most cases. I mean, let's take Creevy, for instance. I mean, 39 years old, he finally decided to hang up his boots. Yeah, he made the effort to make it to like 100, especially there in Argentina at his home ground, and then he hung up his boots, even though it was a loss against Australia. He's walked off as a hero because he hasn't tried to push on like, okay, cool, I need to make it to my next milestone to make it look like that 100 wasn't as bad as it was.
Which is probably what Marla's done now, and probably what Dan Cole needs to do. I'm sure if given the opportunity, Borthwick would still be playing Marla in 10 years' time. But he's called an end to it now. But Dan Cole persists. Like
But I
the
mean,
Rock.
Marla did say he was at the training camp and he didn't enjoy it anymore, and he was like he wasn't going to take that into the team, so he walked away as a hero. He didn't carry on playing to be like, okay, cool, I made 100 caps, but that's 8 games, and 8 games you could become the absolute worst thing England's produced in years because he just wanted that 100 cap. And for me, I'll tip my hat off to him. I mean, he was a great character. I mean, I heard him a couple of times when he got one man of the match for Harlequins. He was like, did you see what the other guy was doing to me? Like, why am I got this man of the match medal? Why is it not to him? Like, are you guys even concentrating on the game? Which to me says he has a great vision in the game, which I think Harlequins need to grab onto him and keep him as a scrummaging coach, because I think he is probably one of the a top scrummager. I wouldn't say the best, being a South African, but yeah.
But we'll get on to Gatland. I'm sure we've all got plenty more to say there. I did want to turn to you, Jacques, see if you've got any insight on the game. Did you manage to watch?
Unfortunately, I was not at a TV or internet over the weekend, but I saw the highlights on Monday. And the little bit that I've seen, Wales didn't turn up for the game. It was all Australia. And maybe the first 5-6 minutes, Wales was looking a little bit positive and a little, in Afrikaans, we say, lus for the game. They're in the mood to play it. But what happens is, as soon as the Australians got over the advantage line the first time, and it keeps on happening, and that first quarter with the 19 points, it takes a very strong mental team to get back on their feet from there. And yes, they clawed themselves back, but in that last 20 minutes, the 21 points that they had, that Australia put up, you have to have the captain or the senior players in the team that will be able to push the positivity through to the guys to say, listen, yeah, we are behind. Maybe there's no chance of us winning, but we have to make our country proud. And then it's a whole mindset that needs to change, to say, listen, yeah, we can't take them on physically, but maybe we can see if we can go past them on the wider channels or whatever the case might be. And if your game plan is not working, you have to have the mentality to adapt to their game plan and try to beat them at their own game. Or if you've got a plan B, which I don't think Wales or Wales Rugby Union have, I don't think there is a plan B for them. But that is also one of the big problems that the Springboks have. As soon as New Zealand, for example, change their ways, you don't see South Africa adapting. They just try to stumble forward. They give the ball to Gatland and he just wants to run over the inside center, but it doesn't work. If it makes sense, what I'm saying is they can't change. They play one way, and if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. And I also think, well, we'll get to Gatland later, but Gatland can hang up his whistle or whatever the coaches hang up. He's passed his time.
But you were talking about mentality. How do you foster that sense of winning mentality in a team where at a regional level, all the players are losing week on week? Listeners are probably sick of hearing this stat because everybody's talking about it at the moment. But Cam Winnett, of his 27 professional rugby games so far, he's won 6. 3 of those have been against other Welsh regions. So in a team that isn't experiencing regular wins at regional level, how do you almost falsely, override that losing mentality and try and create a synthetic version of a winning mentality in camp? That sounds so difficult to me.
I mean, you look at it before the 2019 World Cup, 16-17, when we were under Alistair Coetzee. I think Jacques and I were talking about in one of our other episodes, it was 11 out of 26 wins. It was a horrible time. I do believe myself he was a fall guy for a idea that was given to him that he had to run with that just didn't work. And Rassie came in and he reinvented the wheel for the Springboks. He was like, this is my game plan. This is what I'm going to do. Transformation is going to happen, but it's going to have to happen from the grassroots level. So he already looked beyond what was in the camp. And I think that's what needs to happen is someone needs to take the reins and say, all right, I'm changing everything up. Everybody who has a contract, you don't know whether or not you have a contract because you don't know what's sitting behind door number 2. It could be a youngster who's frothing at the mouth, ready to go, that's going to play with more passion, and that passion could be what you guys need. And it could be that person that hypes up the team to go into the extra gear.
So,
Like I
so
said, sorry, Rod, like I said, these players are used to losing, aren't they? If you think at sort of URC level, at under 20s level, they've struggled the last few years as well. There's no A team to sort of bring those players through and have that sort of bridge between club rugby and international rugby. The whole structure throughout the clubs, and then it's now coming through strongly with the international team as well, has that losing mentality. And I think in the past, we had some players who had that winning mentality. Your Alan Wynns, your Warburtons, who were world-class players who could hold those teams together to an extent and had that leadership quality. They were experienced players with 100 and whatever caps. Our most experienced players now and our leaders are sat on 20, 30 caps, and they're trying to lead a load of youngsters who are lacking experience, but also, as you say, lacking that experience of winning rugby games, because they don't week in, week out, and they certainly don't for Wales at the moment. So I think it's really hard to manufacture something from that when that's what they're experiencing week in, week out.
But I
do
mean,
we
the joke
aim
that
for-
we had, sorry, the joke that we had the last time we played you for the Qatar Cup was the fact that Etzebeth had more caps than the whole team combined, which, I mean, when you think about it, okay, cool, that's inexperience,
it was
but at
the
the same
whole
time, it does,
It was the
yeah,
whole pack, wasn't it? Sorry to interrupt you, Kirby.
yeah,
It was more than the whole cap.
yeah. But I mean, it to me, when I look at that, okay, cool. I was like, okay, that's inexperience. That's who we can capitalize on. But at the same time, you need to realize that young blood is what you need. But you almost need that captain to come through. You need those leaders. And I mean, that's something listening to previous Springboks and so the whole setup that they have is there's not just one leader. Yes, you have your captain, which is Sia, but then there's Etzebeth, and then there's Jesse, and there's Willie, there's all these little guys who have things, and they're meant to hype up the captain when the captain's also down. I mean, you listen to some of the documentaries that have happened, you hear Sia goes, I don't know what to say, and then there's Etzebeth busy saying something. The World Cup where at halftime everybody was quiet and Peter Steff spoke, the guy who doesn't speak, but he was able to put that fire into the team. You just need that one person to light that fire, and I reckon you guys can become dangerous again, which I'm actually hoping for happens to you guys pretty soon, because Wales has always been a very exciting team to watch. I mean, you look at some of the legends of the game that have come, they've come from Wales. I mean, like your Williams, your Halfpenny, the guys that like defy the odds. That's what I see when I hear Wales. Like you can't underestimate them because they will defy the odds. And
At a purely physical level, disregarding the coaching and the experience level of this current crop, do you think that that crop of players could have beat Australia on the weekend, given the right coaching setup and the right sort of strategy going into the game? Because, like I said, we looked small,
Yeah.
looked non-dominant. We weren't getting any go forward for the majority of the game. Could they have done it?
like I said, your discipline was very good. So the fact that your discipline was already better than Australia's, I would say yes. If you had that right person to light that fire, it's you know what they say. If there's a fire around here in Cape Town, someone's having a braai. The next thing you know, there's 5 other braais lighting up. It just takes that one spark.
I do wonder, I think the reality of where we are at the moment is that we're trying to claw our way back to a position where we run these teams close now and again and get the odd win against the top nations. I think realistically now we're on a level with Georgia and Italy and Fiji. That's sort of where we are currently. And we need to get our way back up to a level where we're competing even with Scotland, for example. And then, come the autumn games, that we're actually pushing the Southern Hemisphere teams closer. I don't think the team that was out on Saturday could have won that game, even with different coaching. I think we haven't got the quality within that 23 currently to beat the Southern Hemisphere teams, even in Australia that's in a rebuild at the moment, and certainly not New Zealand, South Africa. So I think the reality is, if we can get back to a position where we're within 10 points, 15 points of those teams, then that would be a massive improvement for the time being.
Well, talking about Georgia and Italy and losing to them, it was those losses that lost Pivac his job. What was it, 2 years ago now? So is this Gatland under threat? I want to move the conversation on to sort of WRU matters and coaching matters. He looked dejected after the game on the weekend in that post-match interview. It was a hard watch, and he didn't look like he wanted to be there. I don't think he's handling this whole process well, blaming Costello, blaming the ref, blaming the media, blaming anybody but himself. It's not the narrative that the media is creating, Gatland. It's the record, and it's a poor one at that now. So he's definitely got questions to answer, but is he under threat? What do you reckon, Mark?
I mean, I was initially angry when he came on screen post-match because he had a massive smile on his face, and that really pissed me off to start off with.
Yeah.
But then you kind of saw from there that was actually that he just didn't know what to say. And the more the interview went on and the more the questioning was turning towards his future, there was almost a sort of a resignation that his days are potentially numbered, that there are difficult conversations to have. But then he goes and spoils it by saying, well, I'll just go and sit and have a glass of wine on the beach with my family, and I'm quite happy with that on his 600 grand a year. And you think, well, yeah, there's that arrogance about him as well. You think does he really care, particularly if he does go, is it any skin off his nose? He'll get a nice payoff at the end of the day. I don't know. It's like I said earlier on, it's his sort of legacy is tarnished. And I think the most telling thing on Sunday was, I mean, there was only 56,000 in the sort of stadium to start off with anyway. 12 months ago there were 67,000, I think, for the same fixture, and I think at least 20,000 of those had left by the end of the game as well. And I think where he's taken Welsh Rugby, not just him but the union as a whole, is a period of apathy. The fans, there seemed to be no atmosphere in the stadium from the start on Sunday. I don't think anybody expected us to win. And there was a little bit of spark when we got close towards the end of the half. And then, as I said, by the end of the game, a third of the three-quarter filled stadium was empty. And I don't know what the ticket sales are like for this Saturday, but I know I went straight onto StubHub to see what sort of prices people were selling tickets for, and you can get tickets for like 20 quid for this Saturday. People just trying to get rid because they don't want to go and watch the team at the moment, and that's the worry going forward, that we can't afford as a Welsh union to be losing £500,000-600,000 on lost ticket sales from an apathetic public that have just had enough.
I mean, I'd pick up one of those tickets for 20 quid.
Yeah, well, so was I. Yeah, I was tempted, to be fair. Yeah,
if I thought it would be competitive, but I don't want to see triple digits put on us, and I think that's
only happened against Italy.
Possibility.
That's only happened against Italy.
Yeah, well, we're there. We're there.
But it isn't just Gatland at the end of the day, is it? If you think there's no attacking structure, so that's Howley.
Mm-hmm.
There's no defensive structure with for sure. We just lost lots of individual errors and structural errors defensively as well. So it's not just Gatland; it's the whole coaching team that are not able to get the best out of these players at the moment.
Yeah. It is a shame. As through my eyes, just purely as a fan, we bloody named a gate on the stadium after him. So hopefully it's not as sinister as sort of you're suggesting, Mark. And maybe he is just thinking of, damage limitation, not from a personal perspective, but from, a Welsh rugby reputational perspective. Kirby, Jacques, do you want to get in on this? Do some Gatland bashing?
I just want to know, like, when we were going through our bad phase, I mean, we had social media videos of people burning the South African jersey because they had lost faith in it. Have you guys actually seen that on your side right now?
No, not at all. Crossed my mind, but I haven't seen it.
No, the anger seems to turn to apathy, I would say, at the moment. And that's dangerous in some ways.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, like, what is it, 11 on the chart right now?
Yeah. People burning jerseys shows that they care, I don't think a lot of Welsh fans even care that much at the moment.
No.
And it's not like they have an alternative and good regional rugby to turn to.
Not like you, Rod, that's got Italy to turn to, so you're okay.
Yes, 3 points on the weekend, 3-point win right at the very end. Jacques, are you of a similar standpoint?
I'm sitting and you know what?
You're enjoying this.
To be quite honest, I'm not. All right, because sitting in a coaching position at this point, we already started with our preseason for next year. All right, and now you think about all this, how Gatland started off his first term, he was brilliant. I think he won the Six Nations, once or twice, 3 times. I'm not 100%. I don't know. And now all of this happens and he gets the blame. 100%. Unfortunately, he is the coach. He has to take the blame. But he must sit and just see what other countries do. Look what South Africa did. Dwayne Vermeulen finished. He retired. What is he doing? He's in the team as a consultant. Same thing with New Zealand. What is that guy's name? Sam Whitelock, if I'm not mistaken. No, I think it's Sam. I'm almost sure it's Sam Whitelock. He's also part of the coaching staff as a consultant, but behind the scenes, you don't see him. And that is the type of things that you need. And Wales has got brilliant players. Halfpenny, Williams, Jenkins, Neil Jenkins. I don't know if he's still alive. He was one of my heroes. He was probably the best
coaching setup. Yeah.
Just even if it's not even part of the coaching setup, just bring those guys in on a Monday, Tuesday at a session. Talk these oaks through. Get a psychologist to talk these guys, because if you go from a provincial team all the way up to international level, that's a big step up. That is, if you want to compare it, you take it if you win the lotto. When you win the lotto here in South Africa, when it's 21 or 30 million, they give you a doctor's number that you have to go see. Because winning so much money plays with your head and you do silly things. Same happens with once you go from provincial to international. It's a big step up. So that is where that mentality comes in. You have to force yourself to be ready for this. Because it's not this Palooka rugby that you're playing down here. Now you're playing for your country. You're playing in that red jersey. Now you're not just representing your province, but it's how many people is in Wales? 50 million, 60 million? I don't even know. But now you represent whatever it's but now you're representing all of these people. And now it's not just yourself, it's your whole team, your whole coaching staff, and the entire country. And for a youngster that's stepping into this level, it could be difficult. And that is where you need these guys to say, listen, let me take you, I'll groom you, I'll teach you. Yes, your first couple of games, you'll make mistakes. But that's why I said in the beginning, this Autumn Nations is where you guys need to put in the youngsters. Take the losses, 100%, give the blame to whoever. But Gatland must be the one that says, listen here, this is my plan. This is what, like Rassie, what he did. Everybody, I think he had a 50% win record in his first year as coach. But he openly said to everybody, this is my plan. If it doesn't work, I'm sorry.
Phase.
We're in a building phase. Then listen, yeah, I'm sorry. Let's try another way. Luckily for Rassie, with his brilliant, I don't know where he got his brain from, but it worked out. And Gatland must start realizing that he is wrong. And if he thinks to himself, listen, I can fix it, make a plan, put it out there, let everybody see, all right, this is what's going to happen. We're going to lose a couple of more games, but that's fine. This is what's happening. After that, you give them 3-4 games. After that, you'll see results. If not, he needs to step back and say, listen here, give someone else a chance. Let him then focus on the British and Irish Lions, because I think that is also something that might play a role in this. He doesn't care because his mind is so focused on the Australia tour that he's 600 grand a year just spending money for the tour next year. My
Is he
opinion.
part of Farrell's setup? Because
I
I
don't
know
think he
Farrell's
is,
meant
no.
to be the coach. Yeah,
Yeah, no, I don't think he is.
because I think he did 2 Lions tour.
Yeah, he's done 2 tours, isn't he? Yeah.
So he did the New Zealand victory, which was, as most people say, was the downfall of the New Zealand rugby. And then
Well, New Zealand
there was
draw,
one
wasn't it?
against us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, New Zealand draw.
No, but
yeah.
yeah, there's a whole documentary I kind of watched where that red card that Sonny Bill got was actually literally the downfall of New Zealand
Right.
rugby. That's why they didn't win the 2019 World Cup. There was a whole thing about it. But yeah,
Well,
I
then
mean,
I must
he
say
walked off
sorry.
on a-
Then I must say sorry because I read somewhere that it was part of the British and Irish setup.
Yeah, not this
Apologies.
time. Not this time. I mean,
Okay, then there's no excuse for him. Then he needs to pull up his socks and take his finger out his ass and get it right.
Just picking up on Jack's point there, just about the youngsters coming in. You know, obviously thinking now short term in terms of this weekend's game. I know we'll sort of preview that in a bit more detail in a minute. But you know, in terms of selection for Saturday, there's absolutely no reason now to not bring in the likes of Freddie Thomas, the likes of Josh Hathaway. You know, give Costello a game at 10. I never want to see Anscombe playing at 10 for Wales again. He's 33, he's slow, his hamstrings have gone. He isn't the future at 10 for Wales, so why on earth flog a dead horse to watch him go sideways and sideways and sideways and just pass the ball onwards and onwards, or just pass the buck to the inside centre all the time. I've just had enough.
He was better at 15.
Yeah, and that's a potential. Yeah, I mean, Winnett is looking tired. I mean, he's been one of our better performers this autumn, but he's been battered in the 2 games that we've played as well. So that could be an option to play Anscombe at 15. But at 10, I don't want to see him at 10 again. I would rather see Costello playing at 10 and making the odd mistake like he did when he came on Sunday. Because we don't have many options at 10 at the end of the day. So if he's the guy, then let's give him the opportunity and a run of games to show what he can do. But you know, we just need to cap some of these youngsters on Saturday, and you could argue against South Africa maybe the worst time to do that. But what have we got to lose at the end of the day? You know, we've lost 11 in a row. Does 12 make that much of a difference at the end of the day if these guys are given the opportunity and they're blooded and they're given a chance to play international rugby, and it's a bit sink or swim, but they need to start somewhere.
What I will say about Anscombe is, he's probably got the best knowledge of the South African players because of the Super Rugby experience. I still remember when he was playing for the Chiefs, watching him at 15, he was dangerous. And then he all of a sudden went off the scene because he went up to Wales. And next thing I saw, he was playing for Wales due to family heritage. But he was knocking on the All Blacks' door as well. And it was just Wales managed to jump and beat them to the punch. And I always thought he was a great 15. And I'm surprised I haven't played him more at 15. Because he does have quite a good view from the back. He almost reminds me of a bit of an inexperienced Percy Montgomery.
You're right, though. He's the kind of player you want in camp, but not necessarily starting because he's not the future. There's 2 young fly halves there. If you count Ben Thomas, I know the Gatland was trying to smush him into that mold at some point. But just before we move on to previewing the South African game, I just wanted your predictions as to whether Gatland will be the coach this weekend, and maybe just a quick bit of talk about who could be the alternative if he does stand down or is fired, either between this game and the South African game or after the South African game.
Your coach from the Ospreys, has he got a job lined up already?
Nothing yet. Nothing that's broken. He's the kind of coach
Welsh Union
his sort of specialism is taking an underperforming team and building that culture, really. So he could be well positioned in that sense. I know that Michael Checker has just got a 1-year contract with Leicester Tigers. So he could potentially be looking for that next step up, although it would be a really big loss for Leicester Tigers, who I'm sure are going to want to extend his contract. Sean Edwards has been talked about, Steve Tandy. But what's the likelihood of this happening?
I think
the
it
thing
depends
is,
on.
I would
Sorry, go on. Go on, Kirby,
I,
sorry.
I would actually go with someone that's actually a bit more local. You need to go local this time. You can't go international. So I wouldn't go with Checker. I mean, I've heard Ronan O'Gara. I would go local. You need someone that has Welsh pumping through their veins. Someone that knows what grassroots is like in Wales and push it up. You're going with Checker. Checker's Australian. Yeah, okay, cool. He's coached around the world. He's picked up things. He will be a great coach. But when it comes to that culture and that, like, what does it mean to be a Welsh rugby player? You need a local person.
Mhm.
I think a lot of it comes down to money at the end of the day. Is whether the union want to throw big money at an experienced coach, at a coach that's got a track record internationally, like Checker, for example. Slightly further down the ladder. If you're talking in O'Gara, obviously he's done brilliantly with sort of with La Rochelle. Sean Edwards has worked with the Welsh Rugby Union before, not as a head coach, but as a defence coach. So he's got that experience of working within the union previously. Pat Lamb's another name I've heard mentioned, but all those names are going to demand expensive contracts. So it's whether the union want to go down that route of paying a lot of money and throwing it at a coach, or you bring in somebody like a Steve Tandy or whatever who's going to be on a lower wage potentially. That money can be freed up then to actually develop the game in some way, whether it's through the regions or whatever. Knowing the union, they probably wouldn't spend it on that anyway. They'd build another office somewhere or do something completely pointless with it. But I think that's the option. Either we're looking at a project coach wise, somebody who can grow with that team because it's a young team, or they're going to play safe and bring in a name, so to speak, who's had that experience, and then they'll be looking for a quicker turnaround because of the experience that they've had working at that level previously.
I think if somebody was to, you need to just operate with complete transparency. Touching again on what you said previously, Jacques, I think those coaches that lay out their game plan tend to go a lot further because people understand the journey that they're on. Gatland hasn't done any of that since he's come back the second time round. We've all had to infer his playing style. And essentially it's looked like he's been trying to implement old Warren ball without, a game plan that's 10 years out of date without the cattle to do so. So we need somebody, and Toby Booth would be perfect for this mold because he is completely transparent in the way that he leads his side. But yeah, I mean, there's lots of names being chucked about. I think the bookies' favourite is Steve Tandy. So talking about those Welsh connections, he'd be pretty fantastic from that perspective. Rog and Di Young are also on those lists. But anything we say now, complete speculation.
My question right now is, do you want someone who has a higher price tag, or do you want someone that has the passion to build your team up?
I don't think price tag even comes into it because the diminishing returns you get of sticking with somebody who's not doing a good job on a massive salary with all the loss of revenue and sponsorship that might come with that, it just doesn't factor in. If the fundamental decision based on and off pitch stuff is that this person isn't right for us, you've just got to cut the bad fruit off at the tree. So I don't think money comes into it necessarily. It's timings. It's what's best. And we're no experts. We're not going to come to the right conclusion here, I'm sure. But the signs certainly seem to be pointing a certain way. And I don't know. He's obviously got credit in the bank. But whether he wants to stay, whether the fans want him to stay, whether Arby Turney and Nigel Walker want him to stay, who knows?
And I think looking forward to Saturday. I think he will be in charge for Saturday. I think if he was going to go, he would have gone yesterday. We're well into game week now in terms of selection and that kind of thing. Probably the next couple of days. I think he will be there to see out the autumn. I do wonder, let's say some miracle happens and we hold you guys to within 10, 15 points on Saturday. Are the union then going to say, oh, see, things aren't so bad after all? This guy can turn things around. We've pushed the world champions close. There's hope. Let's stick with him. Let's stick with the project. or whether they're brave enough to see, well, okay, we may have pushed you guys close, but it's 12 defeats on the trot.
Yeah.
The thing is, I think you're going to look at it almost like a game of hangman, depending on what the result is did you select the right consonant or vowel when you ask, is it an A or a B or something like this? But I think when you go 12 on the trot, you don't care who you're playing. You need something. I mean, yeah, you can be like, South Africa's the world champions. They won the championship. But I mean, we are beatable. It was proven by Ireland. It was proven by Argentina. You just need to pitch up on the day.
And talking about that team, you're coming fully loaded to Cardiff. Rassie clearly hasn't seen the past few weeks and decided to give us an easier time by treating us to a sort of development team. So this could be really embarrassing. We could easily find ourselves 3/4 of a century down. Like I said earlier, I'm genuinely not ruling out triple digits if things go really, really wrong. Kirby, do you want to talk us through the box team?
I will, but just before I do, I mean, South Africa hit 50 players used in a year already. I mean, that just shows you the depth.
52.
This is 52. Sorry, 52 was just Thomas du Toit. Volker Loh.
No. Cameron Hanekom will be number 52.
Yeah. I'm just saying, up until previously to this weekend. But I mean, our front row is Ox, Johan Grobler, Thomas du Toit. Then we got Jean Klein, who's 51. Franco Mostert, Sia, Ulrich Loh, Jasper, which, I mean, we're not going lights on you guys with the forward back.
No.
It's a massive forward back, I must say.
Probably for me, the place that you guys can exploit is in our halfback pairing with Jaden Jordan Hendrickse. Then we go with Kurt Lee Arnse, Damien Delende, Jesse Creel, who is our most experienced centre combination that we've had ever. Then we've got Cheslin Colby and Fussy at 15. Our subs, again, we're not going soft on you, is Malcolm Marks, Gerard Stenenkamp, who's probably the least experienced in the front row for the weekend. Vincent Koch, who is an absolute monster. He's like two of me side by side. Even Etzebeth, Archius Neyman, Cameron Hanekom, which you guys could have taken if you convinced him nicely enough. Kobus Reinach and Andre Pollard.
Yeah, I'm convinced Rassie is playing tricksy little mind games on us by giving Hanekom his first cap against us off the bench after, the entire Welsh populace has been coaxing Gatland to call him up to the Welsh squad.
It's almost cruel, isn't it? It's really cruel to give him his cap against us.
Yeah,
it's like the one that got away, isn't it? Again, for us, it's just cruel. Absolutely.
I love it. I've got so much time for it.
Yeah.
It really makes me laugh.
I mean, the bench is terrifying, isn't it? The thought of, Koch, Etzebeth, Snyman coming on 50, 60 minutes against a tiring Welsh pack is just a terrifying prospect. Unbelievable depth.
My usual at this point is who on to the guests this is would usually be who are the main threats that we should be looking out for, but I think that team is so interwoven with threats from 1 to 15 that it's not even worth asking, and they're all names that we're familiar with as rugby fans. But
I don't know. I think I would have to say Adam Beard. It looks like there's something brewing. I don't know if it's frustration. Is he out?
He's out. Yeah. Rumours of quite a nasty injury by the sound of it. His season could well be over from what we've gathered from sort of other podcasts and sort of sources over the last couple of days. I meant to say actually earlier on, you can't underestimate the effect of him going off had on us on Sunday, just in terms of our maul defence, our line-out organisation. So many players, so many fans rather diss Beard and say that he shouldn't be in the team and this, that and the other, and he doesn't do this and he doesn't do that and doesn't do the other. When he's not in that pack, then flipping heck, can you see the difference? And that really showed. I mean, the line-out fell apart second half completely, but before that, the maul defence, the line-out, the driving line out defence had just gone as soon as Beard went off the field, really. And, that impact was massive. And if it's true that he's going to be out longer term, not just for Wales, but for the Ospreys, then that's a huge loss to Wales, but even more so for us Ospreys as well. And that he's probably his last game for us as well, potentially.
And that's why on my squad selection on my notes on my phone this week, I've taken all Ospreys players out of the squad so that we don't get any more injuries.
But I think Cardiff fans have done the same. Scarlets fans have done the same. They've all done the same. Yeah.
But that would be a shame if it is his last ever game in an Ospreys jersey, because he is leaving for Montpellier, and we might not see him now with this injury for the rest of the season up to Christmas. But what were you going to say on Adam Beard, Kirby?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Just watching him, it just looks like, I don't know if it's just frustration with what's happening, whether or not they would have turned him into a villain or if it would have turned him into a hero. Like I said, it just takes that one spark of someone to ignite a team. And I don't know if that was him just on his way up. I also don't know if it's just he was just also done, because I don't want to say this to you guys, but I mean, you guys are sitting bottom of the log in the URC. Now, this is a horrible year for him in general. It's not like you guys finished up in the top rankings. I mean, I can't talk much as well from the Stormers. We're also having a terrible season. It just looks like he's frustrated. It looked like he was probably going to turn on and become a monster, or in a good sense, and again that he would have needed to be against a very physical and dominant front pack.
Yeah, he's never been that monster kind of player. He's more of a technical specialist, and if you guys weren't aware, he's a pretty Marmite player back here in Wales as well. A lot of fans, I would argue, the ones with the greater, more in-depth knowledge of rugby, understand his value, and see that his technical proficiency in the line out and a set piece and maul defence, earns him his place in that squad. But he's always taken a lot of flack, so I wouldn't be surprised if the bloke was a bit frustrated. But particularly with the amount of pressure that's been put on him as one of those, I think, am I right in saying that he's the only Test Lion in this squad? Or he was in the first weekend before Jackson came back. He was the only Test Lion in the Welsh squad. 5 years ago, we had 8, 9, 10 in the starting squad. So it's a lot of responsibility on his shoulders. He's probably quite looking forward to getting out of the Welsh bubble, I'd imagine. But it'll be a shame to see him go. But yeah, so what are our chances on the weekend?
I mean, where are your weaknesses? I know you've mentioned 9-10 combination potentially being a weakness. Are there any other weaknesses in that team at all? We can't see any.
No. Probably Fussy and the high ball, because he's not the greatest under the high ball, but you guys haven't really been kicking the ball.
Whoa. Excuse me, what? Under what rock have you lost your mind somewhere?
Let me justify that. He wasn't the best at one stage, but he is getting better.
Right. I think the only firstly, remember one thing: rugby is a very, very funny game. Even though we're the world champions, we're on a high. Once you're there, it's easy to go down. Now, for the Wales guys, they're here. There's only one way up.
We hope so.
So it's maybe it's possible. It's not likely, but it is possible that you guys can win. Like I say, rugby is a very strange game. On the day, everything can just work for you, and we can fail. And it only takes that, like we've been saying the whole time, it only takes that one spark. One little inside step from the inside center, he scores under the poles, and the whole team switches on. And as soon as the whole team switches on, it's very difficult to stop. And in saying that, I think that is where New Zealand, sorry to bring it up, but that's where New Zealand lost to France last week. They were on the front foot. All they had to do is go for the touchline and get a driving maul going and score a try, maybe force a penalty try. And he decides to go for poles. And for the last 4 minutes, they were trying to get the ball. They couldn't get the ball back. And in that silly mistake that they made, they lost the test. Whereas it's very possible one of your guys can have that spark and South African can have a off day. Maybe that's a little bit of a positivity for you guys. Maybe you can sleep nicely knowing that I've said that. But in reality, there's no chance of you guys winning.
No, it sounds like we're relying on some illness in camp, in the Springboks camp. Already.
We shout out to that game on Saturday night. I mean, what an incredible game of rugby that was, the All Blacks France on Saturday. Absolutely superb. I mean, good. To your point, I mean, England, though, tried to get ahead of you on Saturday, and that didn't go well for them. There's a sort of South African team that are hurt are a really dangerous team as well. You know, England sort of were good in that first 20-25 minutes on Saturday. Missed a couple of chances to go further ahead, and then from there on in, just the mentality you guys have got.
I mean, the joke going around here in South Africa is Andre Pollard's done the longest successful crossbar challenge and still got it over. But I mean, the thing is, it takes one bad kick and all of a sudden you guys could be back into it and everything. It's not an easy game. The thing is, England made the mistake of trying to go for corners. Yes, we were giving away penalties from it, but we were still defending strongly. And defense has always been one of our biggest strengths. Now, the thing is, are you going to do that when you get the chance to go for points? Are you going to go for points and end up like Scotland, where they couldn't get anything beyond 15 because we only gave away penalties, 5 penalties in kickable positions? That's the thing, is what is going to happen. You never know what's going to happen. It's one of the things I always say as well, is when it comes to conditions of the game, it's also the condition or what the ref's like. I mean, we didn't have the greatest ref on Saturday, Andrew Brace. On our podcast, we've spoken to him about him a few times to be some questionable calls. I mean, one of my biggest thing is he said, oh no, there was a forward pass, but it looked backwards. But then there was one game for the Stormers where on the replay it showed it was forward, but he said, oh, it looked normal to me. I mean, like, this guy's like a coin. He tosses a coin. Okay, I'll listen to the TMO this time. And tosses a coin. No, I'm not going to listen to the TMO this time. It's just, like I said, the ref becomes part of the conditions of the game. You have to play the ref as well. And I think that's where Rassie was clever, to get someone like Jacob Paper on his consultant team to actually be like, okay, let's understand the rules a little bit better. So when it comes to a breakdown, okay, cool. When we're giving away penalties for this thing, why are we giving it? No, because the rule says this. And I think they got clever. I mean, everybody was making fun, like, oh, yeah, but now you got Jacob Paper. But prior to the last World Cup, I know he was going for probably the best ref ever, who's a Welshman himself, Nigel Owens. The thing is, Rassie's done the whole thing.
I think he's just started for the first time since retiring consulting with a Welsh team, isn't he? Was there a story on that recently, Mark? He's been into his cattle farming since retiring for the last year or so.
And got married.
Yes. But he's back, so I think his insight will be valuable. But you're both right. We're not gonna win the physical battle on the weekend. If we are gonna get anything out the game, it'll have to be tactical. But I don't know where the holes are in your game plan to target. So I really can't see any kind of win. It's just hoping for some performance that isn't as devastating as last week's, with just a bit more control and parity in the game. That's all I'm looking for.
The problem is tactical has been our issue the last 2 weeks. We've completely failed to play tactics that are good enough to beat Fiji. You know, everybody knew that Fiji were going to be loose. Everybody knew that Fiji were going to be physical. You know, the game plan that everybody was expecting was plenty of kicking, putting the ball behind them. We didn't do it. You know, against Australia in the weekend, you know, there was a game plan there somewhere. God knows what it was. So tactically, we've been inept the last 2 weeks. So I can't see why we'd suddenly be tactically good against the world champions. It's just, this is just so negative. I know.
I know, and I'm dreading South Africa getting a card because we clearly can't cope with the disruption that brings to a game.
Yeah,
that's 2 games on the trot.
We're also not so great when it comes to cards.
You've got to be better than us leaking 21 points with the man advantage last weekend. We just spiral, and it's like we're either being told to stick to too strict a plan and not giving those players the sort of space to play what's in front of them. That's clearly what's going on in my eyes there. But yeah, tactically, I don't know how we get any foothold in this game. Should we do predictions? Or is it even worth doing? By what order of magnitude are you going to beat us?
I'm going to say 21. I'm not going to give you a 3-digit score because we've only ever done that against Italy and Namibia. But here we are.
21
I'm
point
going to say
mark.
about 21. Yeah,
That's quite
we would take that.
I think I do think there's going to be a little bit of experimental play happening in the game that we haven't seen before. I think Tony Brown's also going to use this as a bit of a let's see what happens if we do this. How does it work in a real life situation?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
How depressing would that be for us though if we're the team that South Africa experiment against? I mean, what an indictment of Welsh rugby that would be.
Don't forget, we played against Romania with 4 scrum halves on the field.
Yeah.
Most South Africa thing I've ever heard. So come on then, Mark, hit us with your prediction. What do you reckon?
Blimey. I mean, we've got an evolving Australia put 50 points on us last weekend. Our defence is a real worry. We're going to have a young team out on Saturday regardless. It's just whether that team plays without fear and just goes for it. And if that's the case, we may score some points. So we may score 20-odd points maybe. But the defence is a real worry and the forward pack is a massive worry. I think, you know, we weren't able to compete physically against Australia. We're not going to compete physically on the weekend, so we're not going to have a lot of ball to play with. If we can keep you guys below 50 points, that would be a win, I think, in my eyes. And if we can keep it to a similar kind of scoreline, sort of 30-point deficit, I'd be reasonably happy with that, which sounds ridiculous. But my worry, Rod, like you said, is if South Africa get ahead early and our heads go down, then we could be looking at an absolute shellacking on Saturday as well.
Don't say a draw. Don't say a draw. After everything is a 20-point draw.
30 points plus. No, I think it's going to be 30 points plus. Yes, I wanted to say a draw just to lighten up the mood a bit, but if everything goes our way, it's going to be a slaughter. That's what I think.
Yeah, particularly.
But like I've said, rugby is a funny game. So there is a possibility of you guys scoring. You must just keep cool, calm heads. If the points on offer, take it. Don't make silly mistakes, because if you're going to make the silly mistakes, we're going to punish you every time. If the penalty is kickable, do it. You're not playing for bonus points. You're playing for a win. If you realize maybe that our lineouts are not so lacquer, focus on that. But if you're not going to take your points when it's on offer, it's not happening.
Yeah, I thought going into this game, we might have some opportunity to score points from the driving maul at the line out, but that didn't go so well last week. And that seemed to be our only attacking threat against Fiji. So, yeah, if Gatland rings in the changes as well in the squad just to get some players capped and some experience, if he brings Eddie James into the centre, if he, I don't know, makes some changes in the front row, brings potentially Rio Dyer onto the wing for his first game of the autumn internationals. Who else is there? Freddie Thomas is yet uncapped, so Gatland will be looking at getting him onto the pitch at some point. There's going to be a lot of inexperience out there. And I know some players had a good week last week, Tom Rogers and the like, but they're not renowned as being necessarily the most defensively astute players. Definitely more in the attacking vein. So I think it could be a miserable day out. But I am going into this one with a real low level of optimism. So it could only be better. The previous two games, I've been going and saying we can win this, and I've just been burnt real bad. So I'm going to say South Africa by. I'm going to say by 45.
But I mean, listening to you saying like bringing in players to debut, I mean, yes, I do understand you want to step up to the biggest teams and everything like that. But playing an inexperienced team against someone like the Springboks right now, is that a clever move?
It can do more damage than good.
Yeah, potentially.
Yeah.
Who knows? Can work out way. Either those players come in and they thrive at that level, and it's the making of them potentially, or like you said, Rod, you could damage them, irreversibly, and we never see them playing for Wales again. So it can work either way, can't it? But we're in a position that we haven't got the depth in the squad to have an awful lot of choice, to be honest. We either go with the same old that hasn't done it for the last 11 games, or we try something different.
It's got to be just picks a 52nd player this year.
Yeah.
Going into this as a player, though, mentally, it's got to be so strange because, these guys are professionals. They operate at the highest level, but none of them can be kidding themselves thinking that they can win this game. So they're going into a high-end, top-level international fixture, not believing in themselves. Even when you're an underperforming team, you always have that belief. But this seems so far out of reach that how do you get yourself motivated for something like that? It's quite an interesting sort of psychological, sports psychology PhD thesis there, I think. They probably exist already. Well, that was depressing, wasn't it?
It was always going to be.
But wait. You know what? Let's look at the positive. Rugby wins in the end.
Yes.
Couldn't have said it. Couldn't have said that any better, Curbs. That was brilliantly said.
Yeah. So we're getting on in terms of time now. So we'll just take a look at a couple of fan questions before wrapping up. We've got one here from Andrew. Thanks again for your question, Andrew. Always great with the questions. And we sort of partially answered this already, or fully answered it, but we'll just give some quick one-line responses. So I don't think Gatland will survive after next weekend. Who do Wales turn to? We've already discussed those options. Michael Cheika was there, Rog. I guess the more sort of debatable point is, will he stay or will he go? Not who's his replacement yet. And our conclusion was that we don't really know. Possibly.
I think probably rather than possibly. I think probably at this stage, but
yeah. Just when.
I think if you were in a Borthwick position, you had this discussion now after 5 losses, it'll probably be like, okay, cool, you're looking for results, but now you're literally looking for a rebuilding phase now.
Yeah.
And actually, it was a similar question from Edward as well. Edward with lots of numbers after his name, so I'm not going to repeat it in full, but you know who you are. Who should Gatsteo go and who should replace him? So yeah, we've already covered that. Not many questions this week, so we'll move on swiftly and just wrap things up here. So Kirby and Jacques, we are going to feature on your podcast, as I believe
Sam.
tomorrow. So this is a bit of a crossover sort of collaboration, we should call it, between the URC Chumps podcast and the Black Feather and Ospreys Rugby Fancast. Kirby, do you want to say a bit about your pod and maybe sort of preview what you're going to discuss over there?
Yeah, so we cover a little bit wider variety than just Welsh and Ospreys. We kind of go for the full URC. We do have an Irishman on our side in our podcast.
Who has featured on this pod and was well received by our listeners.
So if he's listening now, I don't know if you want to pull him in for the Connacht game or the Ulster game because he's switching sides at the moment. This is the way the Munster team's going.
Bring him in for the zebra game, just to piss him off a bit.
Yeah, but yeah, so we cover a wide variety. Jacques and myself, especially the Springboks right now, we do look at the results and give our sayings. Like we said, if Stockdale didn't play the first game that Ireland played, they were going to lose, and look what happened. And they didn't do too well without Stockdale again. But yeah, so we do look at it. I know we are trying to get some names and stuff like that in on our side. So yes, like I have got an ex-Glasgow Warriors player that should be lining up as soon as the Autumn Nations is done.
Oh, nice.
So, yes.
And what's on the agenda for tomorrow? I think Sam, who isn't here obviously this evening, is going to be joining you, representing us on the Black Feather. Similar sort of idea, previewing the game and
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so a review of the games that happened over the weekend, and then preview of the game coming up, and probably discuss some of the stuff, some of the coaching news that's come out, like Johan Ackerman's now in the SA20 setup now, and I know there was talk about him replacing Dobson at the Stormers. Whether or not that is a step to get him into there, to get him back into the local scene, is another story.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've just seen I've got a message on my WhatsApp from Sam saying, "I hope you're all missing me." Well,
yes, Sam, we are missing you.
we usually sorry, Mark, were you going to go there?
No, I was going to say I think Sam's sorting her sort of Christmas jumper collection tonight. Is that why she can't join us? I think.
She's got like one hell of a collection going.
She had a mug collection as well. I think that's the reason.
Yes.
She's going to organise all those tonight, I think. So that's ready for you. Ready for your pod tomorrow.
Cupboards and cupboards.
Background.
Yeah. We usually finish with a Sam's random question to myself and Mark, but I haven't prepped for that, so I don't have some crazy off the wall questions for you. But it's been really great to have you both here with us today. Really enjoyed your company. Really enjoyed both of your insights. Lovely to meet you, Jacques. We'll definitely have you back when we play the Sharks later on in the season. Do you know when the game is between Sharks and Ospreys?
No idea.
Is it one of our two games right at the end of the season? Because we're in South Africa for 2 games of the season, aren't we?
Yeah. I was about to say it is run at roughly that time. If you give me a few seconds, I will actually find out for you guys right now.
Yeah, it sounds like you've got a nice bit of time to get in the right headspace to deal with us again.
Luckily, my head is very busy. So I don't know all the dates when all the games start, because I work from 4 o'clock in the morning till 6 o'clock at night. So it's
second last game. You guys are playing in the Shark Tank on the 9th of May.
Yeah, there we go. Okay,
9th of May. I will get tickets. I will go.
Well, I'll put your socials and everything on the video so people can find you there. We previously said, this has been a sort of crossover episode, and the URC Chumps guys are going to be doing their own version, recording tomorrow with Sam. So keep an eye out on their feed for that and give them a follow. Our details will also be below, so check us out on social media. And in the meantime, any final words, guys?
Just from our perspective, can I just thank everybody who's been following, who's been watching, who's been interacting on Twitter and things. Not to blow our trumpet, but on our YouTube feed, we had 1,000 views on the last episode, which is pretty awesome. So thank you so much, guys, for everybody that watched that. Even our strong Fijian contingent, from what I can gather, Rod, who's possibly been tuning into our pod as well. No, we really appreciate the interaction on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, everywhere. Really enjoying doing this, and the interaction we get from you guys is really important as well. So thank you.
Yeah, that's great. Well,
Yeah.
Kirby, Jacques, Mark, it's been a pleasure. Lovely chewing the fat with you and talking everything rugby. Hopefully, this one was a little bit less depressing than last week's, even though results were even more depressing. I think we made a conscious effort to try and sound a little bit less somber. But this has been the Black Feather podcast, episode 12. Thank you and good night.
Thanks very much, guys. Keep well,
Cheers.
stay safe. Rugby is number one.
Cheers.